All right, usually that's how my videos start. Me going, yay, it works. Okay, so ladies and gents, welcome to year 11 doing language analysis. We're looking at how to put one of these together. We've already started last lesson with writing our issue. Now, if you don't remember what goes in the introduction, let's go to here. There we are. iTask, yes. So as we mentioned last lesson, iTask doesn't have to be prescriptive. It's not like you have to have, gentlemen, you don't have to have everything in it in that particular order. But there are some things that I kind of go, you probably need them in there because it would be weird not to have them. Alex, good? Yeah. Wonderful. So the things that I kind of said were fairly kind of non-negotiable. I think you definitely need to have your issue, because part of the criteria is, do you understand the issue? Do you know what the issue is about? And the easiest way to demonstrate that is by outlining the issue in the intro. You obviously will need to give the title. Author, obviously, again, that's going to be something that you're going to need. Audience is a good one to mention at this stage, but you can mention it in other places in the essay, but I think it's kind of good to throw it in there. Relationship, if you can work out what the relationship is, if you can kind of see a relationship between the author and the issue. So for instance, when we did the Sammy Wilson one, now obviously Sammy Wilson had a relationship to the issue. What was it? Do you remember? He was Aboriginal. He was part of the. Good, yeah. He's part of. He's part of the parks management. He's the head of it, and we already kind of know their feelings on it. So that obviously changes his relationship to the issue, and obviously it gives him a particular bias, doesn't it? So you could talk about relationship. Other things, stance. Now, we did talk about stance in the past. Let's go with Taylor. Taylor, what's stance about? It's like therefore against. Yeah, the topic. Yeah, the issue. Like, what's their basic kind of, almost like the most basic contention? So, are they for the climb? Are they against the climb? Yeah. And then contention is a little bit more kind of, I guess, in depth and talking about what is their overall argument. Okay, so all good so far? Now we started last lesson doing the intro. Intro. Okay. And I'll put iTask up there just to remind us. Okay, just so that we can kind of tick them off. At the moment, we just got stuff about the issue. So far we've got this. This year, is that big enough? Yeah, that's heaps big. This year, the members of the Uluru-Katajuka National Park Board of Management decided that from 2019, no one would be allowed to climb Uluru. This was made because the percentage of climbers dropped to 16%, thereby determining that it was no longer a major tourist draw card and that banning it would... Good, okay, let's use that. Would not affect tourism numbers. Okay. If it was banned. Okay, anything else we want to add to that? I think probably it would be worth kind of saying why people want to ban it and why people don't want to ban it. I think that's probably something we should add in here. So why do people want to ban it? Good. Okay, who says it's disrespectful? Good. The Aboriginal community in the area want to ban the climbing Uluru because feel it is disrespectful to what? Disrespectful to what? What is it disrespecting? Their culture and spirituality.
Miss, are we allowed to say Aboriginal or do we use Indigenous?
Well, they are. So, do you know the difference between being Aboriginal and being Indigenous? Okay, so it's kind of like saying, like potato. Okay, so you've got a potato, but there are lots of different types of potato, aren't there? Mm-hmm. There are like sweet potato, there are like those red ones, there are like brush potatoes, like there are lots of different types of potato, right? Indigenous is potato. Okay, it's like the umbrella term, okay? Whereas Aboriginal is like sweet potato. So it's still a type of potato, but it's still a type of Indigenous, but it's its own category, because say Aboriginal people are the people who live in Australia. Okay, that's the term that we use. And then you have, say, Torres Strait Islanders, who they live on the islands and they don't necessarily consider themselves Aboriginal, because they're like, well, no, because our culture is really different to theirs. It's completely different. And so they don't want to be grouped in with Aboriginal people, because they're like, well, we're not Aboriginal. We're not like them. They're completely different. And then there are all these other groups that live on very small islands who also think, well, I'm not Aboriginal. I'm our group. You know, I'm part of us. I'm not really kind of, you know, part of Aboriginal culture or whatever. And so when we talk about Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islanders and other islanders and stuff like that, when we're talking about them, we talk about Indigenous people. Do you see what I mean by like Indigenous is like potato? Yeah, it's like an umbrella term. Yeah. But that being said, even the word Aboriginal is kind of, it's complicated, because Aboriginal people have never seen themselves culturally as a whole. They're not. They're all their different, you know, all their different mobs are completely different. So like, for instance, like in Western Australia, you have the Noongar people, who are like in that kind of Perth, Fremantle area. Their traditions, their culture, their beliefs, their spirituality is completely different to, say, the Wiradjuri people of Melbourne. That they go, well, how can you group us together? Our language, like if we both met, we wouldn't be able to speak to each other in our native language. They have no similarities. Our culture is different. We believe different things. We are not the same type of potato. You know, we are different types of potato. So even that word Aboriginal is kind of, in Aboriginal communities, is a bit like, they feel funny about it. That's why often, you know, like when you have someone who says, you know, I'm an Aboriginal person, and then they clarify it and they say, you know, I'm part of the Noongar tribe, or I'm part of this mob or that mob. Like, they actually are specific, because that means a lot in terms of like how they practice their Aboriginality, how they practice their culture. So it's a complicated one. Yeah, I know. But I mean, I suppose, you know, that's what happens when you invent something, you know, 40,000 years ago, before, like, you know, white people come with our umbrella terms that don't necessarily fit theirs. Who would have thought? There might be a bit of difference in 40,000 years. So, here we go. So, we've got so far why we want to ban Uluru. Do we want to add anything else about why people want to ban Uluru? Why else do they think we should ban it? Good. There are concerns for the damage occurring to the rock, and perhaps like potential like accidents and deaths that can occur, yeah? And the safety of tourists that do choose to climb. Okay, how can I transition from talking about the anti-climb arguments to the pro-climb? What kind of joining word or kind of flow-on word could I use? What do they believe? So, whereas people who believe the climb should not be banned believe that... let's not use the word believe twice because that looks ugly, doesn't it? Let's look for the synonyms. No, I don't like them. People who view that... it kind of sounds funny, doesn't it?
Yes.
Who feel, I like that. Who feel, people who feel that this climb should not be banned believe that, what do they believe? Good. That Uluru belongs to all Australians, should not be controlled just by Aboriginal people. Also, what are their other arguments?
People don't know because it was there before people were
They. Well, I guess that kind of goes with like that all Australians kind of thing. But what's another kind of like very different argument that they make? So they go, well, it doesn't just belong to you, it belongs to all Australians. What else do they say? We read one yesterday. Pardon?
You can climb it and still be respectful.
Good. All right. Ladies, gentlemen. Okay, so we've got, whereas people who feel that the climb should not be banned believe that Uluru belongs to all Australians and should not be controlled just by Aboriginal people. Also, they think that climbing the rock can be a respectful experience if done appropriately, and that removing it from the tourist route would ultimately hurt Northern Territory tourism. Northern Territories. The Northern Territories. Can you see the importance of reading aloud?
Yeah.
If I need to read aloud, someone who writes essays all day, every day, I would say, you probably need to. Yes, you can. You just sit there very quietly and just do it really, really quietly. And nobody cares. No one even notices. In fact, I used to have one of my cleverest students that I ever taught used to do this thing where she used to actually argue with herself in an exam. And I don't just mean English ones, I mean all exams. That she would be like, she needed to She was a very like language-driven person, and so she needed to kind of talk out problems. And so she would be sitting there, and I obviously, because I taught her, I used to supervise her in exams a lot, and she'd be like,
Person next to her would be there.
and she would actually have these discussions with herself, particularly like with maths and physics, where she had to like think through a problem. That she would usually in a classroom say, oh, I think I needed to do this because, and she would talk through with a teacher or like with another student. She couldn't do that, and so she would actually do it with herself and like actually have these full debates with herself. And she's studying med now, and she still does it. She says in every exam, I will sit there and be like, oh, because that's what she needs. And no one cares. If you're not making any noise, no one even notices you're doing it. Yeah, she's just like, yeah, it's just who she is. It makes sense to her, so she does it. She's like, I don't care what people think. You know, she's got a scholarship to do med. Like, she's, yeah, she got a scholarship to do med at University of New South Wales. So she doesn't care what people think. It works, so she does it. All right. So, now that I've got my issue. Now the great thing about the issue, ladies, gents, the great thing about the issue is that you know what the issue is going to be, don't you? It's about Uluru. So basically, you could write and polish and perfect something like this, memorize it, and just vomit it back up. As soon as you get in, you could just go and write something beautiful, keep it nice and tight, make sure that it's something that sounds really good, and then come in and write it out because you already know what it's going to be. Yep.
When do we get our results from the other?
I would say probably Monday. Yeah. Yeah. So we're doing cross-marking tonight, and then that gives me a couple of days to kind of polish them, and then, yeah.
Has anyone failed?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. All right. Shall we continue? Come on, we've got to get through this. I'll tell you what, we're not going to do very well if we're going to keep worrying about the past and not focus on the present. Right, so now that I've done my I, now I need to do the task, which is the much shorter bit of it. Okay, so how do I then go into mentioning things like authors and titles? First off, which I think we should do the Sammy Wilson one, personally. I think that's a good one to do. The Sammy Wilson one. Yeah, on the day. So the Sammy Wilson one was the one where he talks about, where is it? Is that my one? Yeah, here we go. It's the why we are banning tourists from climbing Uluru. It's that one. I think we should do that one because I think it's a more substantial piece. All right. I'm ready. Can you not organise your study now? Can we do that later? Maybe in the break if we work hard enough? Right. So, the article that I'm going to do this for, and the reason I want to do the Sammy Wilson one as well, is because it has a couple of arguments. So if we do, say, the first paragraph together, then I can leave you to do the next couple, okay? Whereas if we do a smaller one, there isn't as much for you to kind of practice on. So, how do I lead into mentioning things like titles and author? How do I go in? Good, yeah. What kind of article is it? Well, it's not a letter to the editor. It's not an editorial. Well, it's not an editorial because it's got an author. Good, it's an opinion piece. And yeah, the opinion
Would it be bad if you said article?
piece. Well, no, it's still an article. This is just telling us what type of article it is. The opinion piece. Why we All right. So, I've got the title. Now, you'll notice with the title, I'll just wait until everyone's paying attention. With me? Now, you'll notice with the title, I'll just scroll up a bit. You'll notice with the title is that I haven't underlined it, I put it in inverted commas, okay, because it's the title of an article in a newspaper. If I was talking about the actual newspaper it was published in, which is The Conversation, I'd underline the phrase The Conversation, the title, The Conversation, and then I would put Why We Are Banning Tourists in inverted commas. Now, the first time I mentioned the title of the article, I do have to write it out in full, but after that, I can just write why we are and then ... That's fine. But the first time you mention it, you do have to write it out in full. Okay, so I've got the opinion piece, why we are banning tourists from climbing Uluru. Note as well that I've got capitals for all the major words. Okay, written by Sammy Wilson. What could I then mention? I could do my contention, yep. Contends that, sorry.
It says the author's James Norman.
James Norman is the editor who's published it, but Sammy Wilson wrote it. Yeah. Yeah, he's the section editor. He's not the writer. But anyway, that's okay. Contends that. I'll just wait. What does he contend? What's the contention? That closing the climb is the moral thing to do, and it is what the traditional owners want. Now, if you are, again, somebody who struggles with fluency, if you're someone who struggles with fluency, that your hand doesn't move as fast as your brain moves, can I suggest saying things as you write them? So actually saying each word as you write them. My head moves much faster than my hand. I'm a fairly quick writer, but my head moves faster. And so I often find that I miss words. I leave letters out.
Oh, I do it all the time.
I'll just wait. Still waiting. Yeah, that I stuff up the fluency of what I'm writing because my brain is already on the next thing that I want to talk about. And so if I say each word as I'm writing them, I actually stay in the moment and I actually hear whether what I'm writing is true to what I want to say. And also, it helps a lot with the proofreading process too, because as soon as I say it aloud, I go, oh, does that sound right? No. Okay, I want to scrub that. Hang on. And I'll go back and fix it. So it saves me a lot of proofing time too. So just a suggestion. So I've got the opinion piece, Why We Are Banning Tourists from Climbing Uluru, written by Sammy Wilson, contends that closing the climb is the moral thing to do and what the traditional owners want. Okay, so far we've done I, we've done T, we've done author, we've done contention, and I feel like we probably don't need the stands because we already kind of cover that in the contention, so we don't need that. We need audience and relationship if we want to put them in. Do you want to talk about audience? Which one do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about both? Do you want to talk about one? Both? Let's do both. Okay. Wilson is what is he? He's part of the board of management, yeah? Is a member. Oh, he's the chairman. Is the chairman of the Uluru Kata Juta National Park Board. Which what? How does that relationship affect his opinions or his, I guess, our perception of him?
He's not just a very,
He's legit.
Good, which gives his opinion a sense of validity to the audience. Oh, which leads me into a great kind of segue about talking about the audience, who would be made up of who? Who would read this? Do you think people who
Aboriginal people would read it because it's written in Aboriginal.
good, who would be made up of, well, let's first start off with like the English version. Who would the English version be read by? First off, I'll give you a hint. The Conversation is an online newspaper. It's an online paper that is particularly progressive, particularly not liberal.
Younger generation.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, of younger, and it's an Australian online, yeah, younger Australians who... do you think the people who are reading this are already supportive of not climbing? Yeah, I think so too. Who are already... Because, like, let's be honest, would you read this article if you were not supportive of Indigenous issues? No. You'd kind of go, I'm not going to read this thing written by this Aboriginal guy. You wouldn't read it, right? Of Indigenous issues. And, as Alex said, and also read by other Indigenous people, yeah, because it's Aboriginal people of that kind of area, because he's using that area's language, yeah. Okay, excellent. Although it would be good if I could spell translation properly, but you know, look, can't win. All right, so this looks really massive, and I do understand that. Yeah, so it's 250 words. I know, it's pretty cool, isn't it? So this is rather big, but that being said, I'm obviously trying to show you something that I go, this is a really good example. There is no point me showing you something that I'm like, this is like a C+. Like, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? Like, there is no point me showing something that I'm like, oh, look, this will get you an S, but it's not going to be great. You know, I want to show you something that's really good. Now, just so that you know, to colour code, let's colour code. So we'll make... That's all issue, so we'll make that yellow. And then title, we'll make that... I can sing. Like what? Ah, yeah, thanks. Thanks. I'll take that compliment. Purple. Purple's really hard to read. Yeah, blue. No, that's hard. Pink.
That's not pink. That's like magenta.
It's kind of like fuchsia.
That's the colour fuchsia.
Fuchsia.
Fuchsia sounds like a really kid's name.
Let's go green for contention. And then Wilson is the chairman, which gives his opinion a sense of validity to the audience. That is relationship. Poo. I'm running out of colours, that's all. I'll do blue, yeah. And then I'll do blue for the,
You want me to say also?
I know, it's like a poo colour.
Yeah, like
It's like a poo. Pardon?
change like the poo colour to the pink one and change the pink one.
Yeah, it's also
You don't like poo?
It's too big to be that disgusting.
It looks like
Fine.
the normal one.
Can we adjust the colour?
You don't like the yellow? The yellow's good.
I can't read yellow.
Really?
Like I know it's black. Like,
Why can't you read that, you weirdo?
like I can see yellow.
Just trying to clarify.
Grey. Boring. Who gets out their grey highlighter? Seriously. I feel like Word really needs to invest in more highlighter colours. Like, look how many colours there are. Like that, sorry, that's the writing. But like, look, there's not enough colours for highlighter. And like so many of them are redundant for highlighter because you're like, purple,
Black highlighter.
can't even read.
Wait, what about black miss?
Like, grey.
Oh my god, miss, can you hover over the pink colour? What's the colour it is? Oh, it's pink.
Yeah, it's blue, can't read. Like there.
Black with white.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Oh, see, Ali was smart. You put white writing.
It was Leon.
Oh, okay, good work.
Nice,
Leon.
Leon.
Do the highlighter colours.
You go highlight.
Oh, okay. Right. Highlight it first. Gotcha. Bam. Okay. Oh, look, it's pretty. Okay. So, does that make sense? The intro is pretty easy. The great thing is, you know how we did all those grids, those tables? Basically what you wrote in your table, you just directly take that and put it into full sentences into your paragraphs. This is really, really easy. A lot of people freak out because they're like, we have to write an essay for this? And it's like, yeah, but it's just like shaping what you wrote in your tables into full sentences. It's really easy. Okay, so let's do it. We ready? Let's do the first paragraph. So, let's have a look. So, we've done our intro, so we can tick that off the list. And then for this article, we know that we have 3 arguments. No, 3 or 4? I think we had 4 actually. Okay, so we will have... I'll just wait. We'll have 4 paragraphs. Okay? Now, I would say in 90 minutes, you should be able to get through 8 to 10 persuasive techniques total. Not for each argument, total. So if I've got 4 arguments, I would say 2 or 3 techniques per argument. I'd probably go with 2. And then if you get to your last argument and you're like, oh, I got lots of time, slap in a couple more. Beautiful. Okay? It's really important for this essay that you keep an eye on the time, because you can get really bogged down talking about, say, one particular argument and you burn all your time. So you've got to kind of know when to move on. Okay? So, let's have a look at how we structure this. Not that I need to kind of flick through this because you guys have already done it and you watched the video and you're all good. So, basically, each body paragraph begins with your topic sentence, and your topic sentence talks about 2 things, the tone and the argument. Okay, so topic sentence for the first argument. So we had 4 arguments for the Sammy Wilson. Good old Sam. So Sammy Wilson gave us 4 arguments. The first one was they've asked for this for a long time. The Aboriginal people have asked for this for a long time. The second one was that the rock is sacred. The third one was that most people want it anyway. And then the fourth one was there are other things to do at Uluru other than climate. Is that right? All right, so how would you describe the tone of the first so we went through and actually circled which would be argument 1, which would be argument 2. Have a look at argument 1 and give me a word. Actually, I have a gift for you, and I couldn't remember whether I gave it to you or not, so I'm going to just check. Did I give you guys this sheet?
No.
Oh, it's your lucky day. Okay, so this is a really great sheet for practicing for this SAT because it's got all the words that you can use. Okay, because one of the things you'll notice about this essay is it feels very repetitive, that you use the same words over and over again, right? So, in order to avoid that, you use these. Can we bring this into the essay? What the hell is that?
Miss, are we actually allowed to bring these into the essay?
Pardon? No. You can use it in your prep.
Actually, Miss, when is the essay?
Tuesday.
Next week.
Yeah.
I thought it was on Monday. No, I thought it was on Monday back.
Next week.
Yes, I know. That's why I was freaking out yesterday when you hadn't watched the video yet, because I was like, right. Actually, all right. So, what you'll find on that sheet, what you'll find on this sheet is the first page is really good because it has a whole lot of words that you use repetitively in these type of essays, and it just has synonyms for them. So if you kind of are writing a draft and going, oh, I'm using the word persuades a lot, what else can I use? There's a whole lot of words that you could use. And then on the inside, if you have a look at the inside of the sheet, if you have a look on the inside of the sheet, you've got a whole lot of words to use for tone. And they're actually grouped to kind of help you. So I would really be using this in the lead up when you're writing your practice ones so that you can kind of start putting these words into your vocab, because if you start using them now, chances are you're going to use them in the SAC, okay? Because you'll remember them. So, if we have a look at this and have a look at our Sammy Wilson article, find a word that describes Sammy Wilson's tone in his first argument. So, have a look, see if you can kind of work out a word for it. So we're looking at the first argument, the paragraphs that fit for the first argument, and finding a word that describes its tone. Kathy, you already got one. No? You haven't got a word? Yes, this is why you can't be talking. You need to be focusing. You need to find a word to describe the first argument's tone, how he sounds in the first argument. Solemn. Ooh. Do we like that? What are other words that you could use? I don't know if he's ambiguous. He does, it's clear what his viewpoint is. Ambiguous is kind of like, I don't care one way or the other. Disappointed is a nice one. Solemn, disappointed. I think he gets scornful later, definitely, but I don't know if in the first paragraph. What about pensive, which kind of means like thoughtful? Yeah? Okay, I like solemn though. Let's go with solemn. Mainly because it's like got the M and the N, and I love that. It looks cool, yeah. Okay. Wilson begins his first argument with a solemn tone, expressing that belongs to the people Indigenous to the area, and that they have requested this ban for a long time. Alright, so this is my topic sentence. We ready? So I've said Wilson, because I've already called him Sammy Wilson, so I can call him Wilson from the rest, but I can't call him Sammy because he's not my mate, okay? So I start the topic sentence by saying, Wilson begins his first argument with a solemn tone. Okay? That's my tone. Expressing that Uluru belongs to the Indigenous, to the people Indigenous to the area, and that they have requested this ban for a long time. Okay? So that is my argument. I'm going to do it in blue writing. And then here's my tone in red. Red might be a bit hard to read. Oh no, it's okay. In red writing. Okay. So that's my topic sentence. Does that make sense? Pretty easy. The great thing about this form of essay is that it's super formulaic. Like, it's got a formula. And if you follow the formula, if you learn the formula and you follow it, you really can't screw it up. But learning the formula means you need to practice it. Like, it's not just going to, like, turn up in your head. Like, it needs to be practiced. But if you practice it, it's really super easy. Okay? And the great thing is, every time you practice it for this SAC, you are also practicing for your mid-year exam. Because it's the exact same skill.
Is this in the mid-year exam as well?
Yeah. This is in your mid-year, this is in your end of year, and it's on the end of year exam. As in year 12. It's a third of your year 12 exam. Yeah, so this is a really important skill, and the skill doesn't change. The skill is exactly the same. So if you can master it in year 11, you make your life so much easier in year 12. Okay? If you rest on your laurels in year 11 and don't learn it, then your life is a misery in year 12. Because literally we spend 3 weeks on it. Pardon? Oh, I hear Yanni. I can't hear Laurel at all.
I've never heard Yanni. You said rest on your laurels, so I'm like, just rest on your Yannis.
Yeah. I can't hear Laurel at all.
It's Laurel all the time.
Isn't that odd? Yeah, and I've even tried to hear Laurel. Like, you know how you can do things to, like, make yourself... I can't hear it.
I've never heard Yanni.
I think it goes, yeah.
I've heard Tara.
I don't know. It's really confusing.
No, I just hear
Pardon?
I googled this. It's meant to be Laurel.
Oh, there you go. Well, I can't hear that at all. It's really odd.
Maybe it's different if it comes through the speaker.
Maybe. We'll play when the bell goes. All right.
Like this bell or the next bell?
Shh. Does it? Yeah, see, I've tried the frequency thing, but it didn't work for me. I still heard Yanni, and I don't understand
I
why.
don't know. I wonder what Yanni sounds like.
I heard bird.
Yanni.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I heard bird. I'm sorry. Well, we wanted to start this.
Yeah. Okay. But you did. Okay. We ready? Okay. Now here comes the analysis bit. Okay. There are 3 things you need to do in these body paragraphs to classify as analysis. But it's really, really easy. Okay. There are 3 steps for each persuasive pull. Okay. Quote it. I'll just wait. Quote it. What does it, and then ask yourself, what does it attempt to make the reader think or feel? And then step 3, how does that make me more likely to agree with the contention? Okay, so remember we talked about this poster and I even gave you a copy of this poster. That's because this is what you do. Remember when we did our tables, what were the 3 things that I asked in the tables? Give me a quote, tell me what does it make you feel, how does it make you more likely to agree? It's the same thing, okay? We're just putting it in full sentences. So here we go. All right, so give me a technique that comes out of the first, a persuasive pull that comes out of the first argument. What do we want to use?
It's an extremely important place, not a
Beautiful. Let's use that one. I like that. Where is that? That's page 2. Is that on page 2? Oh, just under the picture. Gotcha. All right. Now, one thing that you do need to do that kind of sets you apart is, rather than just kind of plonking the quote, what you want to do is embed it. You want to kind of give it some flow between your language and it. Okay, so something like Sammy Wilson. Oh, I just started with Wilson, didn't I? He states that Uluru is an extremely important place for the Aboriginal community and therefore should not be treated as a playground or a theme park like Disney. Right. Thank you. Shh. I know this isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it is what is going to get you through next week's SAC. So you need to stay focused. Okay? So I've got my quote, and what I've done with it is I've embedded it into my own language. Okay? I've got, he states that Uluru is an extremely important place. Okay? Which is part of the quote. For the Aboriginal community, and therefore should not be treated as a playground or theme park like Disneyland. So can you see how that's just a bit nicer than just plonking the quote in? By blending it into my own language, it just makes it a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more, I guess, me showing my skill in English. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay, so it's a really easy thing that can get you good marks. So let's highlight that. So that is the quote. Let's put that in purple. Beautiful. Okay, so now that I've got the quote, now what do I need? Yeah, question 1, which is? Okay, how does it make you think or feel? What is it attempting to make you think or feel? Now keep note. It can only attempt to make you think something. It can't make you. It can't force you. So you need to say, it persuades them to think. Okay? It attempts to make them think. You can't say it makes them think. Okay? So, this statement, good, encourages the reader to what? Think what? Pardon?
You should go to the rock to learn about the culture, not to play.
That the purpose of going to the rock is to learn about the culture and spirituality of the place, not to play or climb.
This fella's getting legit old.
Yeah. I'm suspicious now. Now that, you know how we mentioned?
Can we count it now?
Yeah, we should. We should start actually doing the research.
I think they're just slightly getting longer
The basic thing.
vowel. They're not adding more, it's getting longer.
That would be very stealthy. Yeah.
And the breaks between each word.
Like it's
And eventually it's going to
That would be super stealth. See, I'm not that clever. I would just add an extra beep and then an extra one and an extra one. Yeah. But like Mr. Kenny, Bravo. Bravo. Okay. So, why does that make me, why does this statement, what is it about this statement that makes me feel that? What is it about this statement? I guess the comparison to the theme park, especially Disneyland, makes us feel like climbing it is so disrespectful, yeah. The comparison to the theme park, particularly Disneyland, attempts to make, well, because they for 40,000 years they've been creating stories about it. Well, it's definitely not mine. My family are from Ireland. I'll give you the hot tip. Mine are from Ireland, so like we do not own that rock. In fact, we should never travel to that rock because I'll probably get melanoma. Like, I'm not really supposed to be in direct sunlight. I'm like a fern of a human being. Well, they're not saying, they don't actually, interestingly, in Aboriginal culture, there isn't the same understanding of ownership. Like, ownership is not a concept that works as plainly as it does in Western culture. In Aboriginal culture, it's more about like ownership is about guardianship. That I don't own it, I take care of it and pass it down. But I'm a guardian of it, I don't own it. That's why when white people came to Australia, they really struggled with this idea of like putting up fences and stuff, and like that people owned sheep, that they're like, but they're animals, no one owns animals, like if you're hungry you eat. That's what, so like the concept of ownership is something different in Aboriginal culture when it particularly comes to like land and like nature. Yeah. So, but yeah, I can say that it's definitely not mine. I do not belong in that kind of environment. I struggled. When I went, it was definitely not an environment I was born for, because I got burnt pretty much every day through my clothing. I was very uncomfortable the whole time. But I loved it, but I was like, I would like to be in air conditioning, please. Yeah, no, I'm just not born for it. I think I was born for like 1700s England, where like women stayed inside and sat and just did nothing. That's sucky. All right, so it attempts to make the reader feel what? That climbing is kind of juvenile, that it's childish to want to climb it. Yeah? Don't you think? Like by saying Disneyland, it's supposed to kind of go, it's childish to want to do that, yeah. Right. So, it's just so that I don't colour it a different colour. Like I want to still have that black while I'm writing. Yeah, I know, I'm smart. Not really, but I'll take the claim. Green. I don't like green. I like green. I like green. Alright. So I quoted it. We're not done yet. We ain't done yet. We ain't done. We ain't done. Luckily, you don't need your computer. Don't need it. Right. Not right now. Not right now. We're at a pivotal learning moment. Right, so far we've quoted it. We've said what it attempts to make the reader think and feel. Now we need to talk about how does that thought and feeling make you more likely to agree with a contention. So, if I think that I'm supposed to go to the Rock to learn about culture and spirituality, because it's an important place, and if I feel like climbing the Rock is childish and disrespectful, why am I more likely now to agree with the contention? Because I don't want to associate myself with disrespectfulness and childishness. Good, yeah.
Miss, can I put on my locker? Because I have Julia's stuff.
Not yet.
Did you get smashed?
It was like, we scored 1 goal and they scored like 6 to 18. That's 1 goal. Oh my God, boys.
Did you literally say they didn't play?
No, I was in that one.
Yes, she said 6 to 80. So who did you play?
I was in right middle school. Just before
Miss, am I allowed to eat?
Yes.
Oh my God, we're the best clubs ever.
Alright. Alrighty. It's okay, I don't need to. Oh, I kind of did, but it's too late now. Blue? Okay.
That's too happy.
It is happy. Alright. So, do you see what you need to do for each technique?
Yes.
Okay, so how would I then lead into my next technique? Because I said I was going to do 2 techniques per argument. What could I use? Furthermore, good one. Good.
I knew you were going to say this.
Right. Ellie Marie is totally right. Something like furthermore, and then obviously you go quote, question 1, question 2. No, that furthermore will link them. Okay? Oh, no. Uno momento. Right. Then, so that's my first paragraph. So I give another quote, question 1, question 2, Shantanu. And then I move to my next argument. So I do argument 2. And I do the topic sentence. And then the quote, question 1, question 2. And then again, quote, question 1, question 2. Again, same. Does that make sense? That's why I'm saying to you, if you can practice this skill, this SAC is really easy because it's so formulaic. And you find that like the more you practice it, the more you realise like all of those kind of like Wilson begins his argument with a something, you know, like all the joining bits are things that you can repeat and reuse. So what I'm going to do now, in a moment, is I'm going to send you this doc and I want you to finish this paragraph and I want you to write the rest. Okay? At the end of the period, in the last, say, 15 minutes, we'll look at conclusions. Now, I want everyone to be writing, not chatting, not talking. I want everyone to be writing because like we have impressed upon ourselves multiple times this lesson, your SAC is next Tuesday. That means we have one more lesson together tomorrow and then one more lesson on Monday and then you're in. So you need to make sure that you can do this skill. If you cannot do this skill, I cannot help you. Capiche? Right, I'm going to send this to you. While I'm sending it to you, you can have a quick stretch and then we're back in. If you need to move because you can't sit near the people that you're sitting with and work silently, move. Otherwise, I'm going to move you. No, I've written it in 2. Yeah, that's the other classroom I teach in. I teach in very few rooms. I did last year. Yeah, that was one of my Year 12 classrooms last year. Oh, I can.